नमस्सर्वेभ्यः। अष्टाध्यायी परिचयः इत्यस्य अद्य षष्ठः पाठः। अस्मिन् वर्गे स्थानम् अनुसृत्य वर्णविभागाः कथं कृताः सन्ति इत्यस्मिन् विषये चिन्तनं कुर्मः। शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। येनाक्षरसमाम्नायम् अधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनिये नमः। वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयम्। अस्य वर्गस्य प्रयोजनद्वयम् आदौ स्मारयामि। अष्टाध्याय्याः आहत्य 400 सूत्राणां व्याख्यासहितम् उदाहरणसहितं च अध्ययनं, तथा च अष्टाध्याय्याः प्रथमाध्यायस्य प्रथमपादस्य कण्ठस्थीकरणम्। वर्णविभागानाम् अध्ययनं प्रचलत् अस्ति। तत्र कालम् अनुसृत्य विद्यमानाः वर्णविभागाः तथा च स्वरम् अनुसृत्य विद्यमानाः वर्णविभागाः अस्माभिः अधीताः। एते सर्वेपि वर्णविभागाः इत्युक्ते ह्रस्वः दीर्घः प्लुता उदात्त अनुदात्त स्वरितः केवलम् अच् वर्णानां कृते सन्ति। इदानीम् अग्रे गच्छामः। इतः अग्रे विद्यमाना ये वर्णविभागाः सन्ति, स्थानम् अनुसृत्य, प्रयत्नम् अनुसृत्य तथा च अनुप्रदानम् अनुसृत्य, एते सर्वेपि वर्णविभागाः सर्वेषां वर्णानां कृते, स्वराणां तथा च व्यञ्जनानाम् अपि कृते सन्ति। तत्र अद्यतनपाठे स्थानम् अनुसृत्य वर्णविभागाः कथं भवन्ति तस्मिन् विषये वयं चिन्तनं कुर्मः। So as I mentioned yesterday, lot of slides, the class is going to be longer. I might not pause in between for taking questions. We will take the questions maybe at some point towards the end. Please pay attention. A lot of new information is going to be discussed today. So sthanam ityukte kim iti chet अस्माभिः पूर्वं वर्णस्य निर्माणं कथं भवति इत्यस्मिन् विषये पाणिनीयशिक्षायाः श्लोकः दृष्टः आसीत्। आत्मा बुद्ध्या समेत्यार्थान् मनो युङ्क्ते विवक्षया इत्यादिकं। तत्र यः वायुः ऊर्ध्वम् आगच्छति सः वायुः कण्ठप्रदेशात्, लेट् मी मार्क् ओवर् हियर्, कण्ठप्रदेशात्, अयं कण्ठप्रदेशः अस्मात् कण्ठप्रदेशात् अपि अग्रे आगत्य मुखे स्थितानां स्थानानाम् आधारेण वर्णस्य निर्माणं करोति. So the sound is not generated till an action of hitting happens. The vayu is coming all the way from the kantha in the upward direction and it is going to hit one of those locations. So which locations? Let's understand this one by one. So we have to start with when the vayu comes all the way on the top. The first location that it might hit is this kantha region. Kantha is the throat region. So it is the kantha region. Very close to the kantha region is a region called jivhamulam, which is the bottom or the root of the tongue. So in this particular diagram, whatever you are seeing an empty space, this empty space is the mouth cavity from which the air is going to come. And then there is yet another empty space, which is the nasal cavity from which the air can come. And below that mouth cavity, whatever you are seeing, this particular part, just this one, wherever I have made a blue mark over there, that is the tongue. Below that tongue, the red part that you see are all muscles. But that part which is highlighted with the blue color is the tongue. And at the base of the tongue is the jivhamulam. So Vayu might hit jivhamulam. The Vayu might hit the kantha, or it might just pass straight away and it might hit this particular region, the upper part, which is called talu, or it might hit the murdha, or it can directly hit the teeth, dantaha, or finally it can directly hit the lips, oshtau. So basically, depending on which location does the vayu make an impact, based on that we have the sthanam anusrutya varna vibhagaha. So these sthanam anusrutya varna vibhagaha, a total of 7 are counted. The sthanani, a total of 7 are counted. Jivvamulam, Kanthaha, Talu, Murdha, Danta, Oshtau. These 6 sit inside the mouth cavity. And the 7th one, Nasika, is outside the mouth cavity. Now, Shiksha Shastra or different Pratishakyas, they count slightly differently. They also include Uraha, chest, and they don't include Kantaha in many places. But we are going to stick to the classification that is seen in the context of Paninian grammar. As the class will proceed on some of the next slides, I'm going to show you how this particular difference results in different kind of rules in the different pratishakyas, but that information is purely for, I mean, that data is purely for informational purposes. In this course, we are only going to stick with what is there or what is attested in the Paninian grammar. So varnocharana samaye वर्णोच्चारणसमये वायोः मार्गे विद्यमानानि तादृशानि स्थलानि यैः सह वायोः आघातः यदा भवति तदा श्रूयमाणः ध्वनिः उत्पद्यते. So the vayu hits and as a result the sound is produced. तानि वर्णोच्चारणस्थानानि इति नाम्ना परिगणितानि सन्ति. एतानि आहत्य सप्तस्थानानि पाणिनीयव्याकरणे स्वीक्रियन्ते. एतेषु सप्तसु षट् स्थानानि मुखे सन्ति. सप्तमं स्थानं नासिका इति अस्ति. Now there is a little bit of shastra that you need to know over here. When the sound is produced, the action of hitting is the one that produces the sound. Every action has various karakas associated with it. There will be a karta, there will be a karma, some karana will be there, adhikarana will be there. Not necessarily all karakas, but some or the other karakas will be there. So let's think about this action of producing a sound. So who is the karta over here? Kaha varnocharanasya karta? Iti chet, on an absolute scale, the Paniniya Shiksha tells us Atma Buddhya Sametyarthan Mano Yungte Vivakshaya. So at the base of everything is the Atma who is the Karta who is creating the Varna, the sound. But that is on an absolute scale. On a more practical scale, if we focus only inside the mouth cavity, then it is the Vayu which is causing the Varnas to be created. So the creator of the Varna is the Vayu, it is the Karta. Who is the Karma? It is the Varna which is being produced. So Varnan Nirmati. Vayuhu Varnan Nirmati. So the Varna is the Karma over here. Who is the Karana? Karana is the helper of this entire action. So as we are going to see in one of the next 2-3 slides, there are 3 different karanas, 3 different helpers that have been discussed in our Shastras. What are these 3 helpers? I'm just going to give you names right now. We will talk about them 2 slides later. So one of the helper is the tongue, obviously. So because it's the tongue that's going to redirect that Vayu to hit at the right place in the mouth. So one is the tongue, jivha. The second is the lips, oshtau, and third is the nose, nasika. So, jivha, oshtau, and nasika, etani trini varnoccharanasya karanani santi. So that's the karana. The next karaka, sampradana and apadana, are not relevant over here. The final karaka, adhikarana, is the place of articulation or the place from which the sound is generated, and that is what we are seeing on this particular slide. So whatever you are seeing right now, jivva, moolam, kantaha, talu, murdha, dantaha, oshtau, and nasika, all these act as the adhikarana, the sthanam of the varnocharana. And based on these sthanas, the varnas are then further classified into the groups. So the jivha moolam sthanam, if it gets used in the creation of the varna will be called jivyaha. If kantha gets used, it will be called kanthyaha. If talu gets used, it's called talavyaha. If murdha gets used, it's called murdhanyaha. Remember these names, we are going to refer to this diagram again and again. Jivha moolam is jivyaha. Kanthaha is kanthyaha. Taluhu is talavyaha. Murdha is murdhanyaha. The next is dantaha. Typically, it is the upper teeth row. So, urdhva dantaha, which is dantyaha. then the two lips, oshtau, oshthyah, and finally nasika, nasikyah. So these are the 7 classes, jivyaha to nasikyah, in which the letters are classified. And not just that, for some letters, two, two uchcharana sthanas act together. So both of them act as a sthana. So Kantha and Talu together are required for generation of some letters. These will be classified as Kanthyaha as well as Talavyaha, essentially Kantha Talavyaha. So Kantha Talavyaha means what? The Vayu comes up, first it hits the Kantha. See the diagram over here. The Vayu comes up, first it hits the Kantha region, gets reflected, and then it hits the Talu region. So Kantha Talavyaha. Similarly, the Vayu will come, first it will hit the Kantha region, then it will straight away pass to the lips, that's Kantoshthyah. Similarly, Danta plus Oshtha, Dantoshthyah. And finally, there could be a mix of Nasika, which is outside the mouth, and one sthana inside the mouth. So it could be Kantha plus Nasika, Talu plus Nasika, Murdha plus Nasika, Danta plus Nasika, and Oshtha plus Nasika. So that is essentially Mukhasthanam Ekam Sthitam plus Nasika is called Anunasika. Anu means follows. So Ramaha Gacchati, Lakshmanaha Anu Gacchati. So one where an existing Uchcharana Sthana follows the Nasika. So Anunasikaha. And observe that these combinations that are generated, they are not random. So not two random entities are picked up. See, there is also Shastra behind it. Kantha and Talu are the first two entities. I mean, Jivha Moolam is specifically about the tongue, so we keep it aside. If you take the remaining entities starting from Kantha, Talu, Murdha, Dantaha, and Oshthav, Kantha, Talu are the first two which are clubbed together. Danta and Oshthav are the last two which are clubbed together. And Kantha and Oshthav is the first and the last which is clubbed together. So if you take this ordering, Kantha, Talu, Murdha, Dantaha, and Oshthav, it's basically a pair of first two, or a pair of last two, or a pair of first with the last. That kind of combinations are generated or considered for the groups or the composite classifications. And they are then named as Kantatalavyaha, Kanthostyaha, Dantostyaha, and so on. So this was about the sthanas, and then about the karnas, as I mentioned, भिन्नेषु स्थलेषु वायोः यदा आघातः भवति तदा तस्मिन् आघाते यस्य अवयवस्य साहाय्यं स्वीक्रियते, the entity which helps that vayu direct to that place, saha avayavah karanam namna jnayate. In the Vruddha part of Paniniya Shiksha, there is this particular statement, Yatra ihasthane varanaha upalabhyante tat sthanam, yena nivartyante tat karanam. The first part is easy to understand. The place where the varnas are produced, varanaha upalabhyante, that is the sthana, kantha, talu, murdha, dantaha, oshthav. Yena nivartyante. Nivartyante means they cease to exist. They stop existing. Nivrutti means to stop doing something. There is a little bit of Shastra over here, and all of you should understand it. In all these karanas, karta, in all these karakas, kartru karaka, karma karaka, and all that, Karana Karaka is very special because it is the one which decides the duration of the action. Understand this. When you say aham hastena likhami and you are using a karana karaka on hasta, it essentially means that if the support from the hand is stopped, the action of writing will be stopped. So hasta actually defines the duration of the action. There is a little more shastra to it, but we will not go in the details. The reason why I told you this is the context for this particular word, nivartyante. The karana is the one that is going to decide when the pronunciation stops. Nivrittihi kada bhavati. So hand decides in one viewpoint when the writing stops, As soon as hand withdraws its support, the writing is going to stop. In the same way, as soon as the karanam withdraws its support, the varna is going to stop being pronounced. So, yena nivartyante tat karanam. Yena sprishyate tat karanam ityapi uchyate. So, the one that touches the uchcharana sthana, that is karanam, that is also a possible definition. And as I mentioned, three karanani, jivha, oshtau, and nasika. And this jivha is actually pretty long, right? The tongue ranges from the teeth all the way back to the kantha or jivha moolam. So it's a pretty big organ. So then tasya api agre pancha bhedaha kritaha santi. So jivha karana is further divided into 5 groups. I have shown it in the figure over here. So this last part of the tongue will be called jivha moolam. The middle part over here will be called Jivha Madhyam. The one that is closer to the beginning is called Jivha Upagram, closer to the Agra. Then the one that is extremely at the tip is called Jivha Gram. So I mentioned 4 of them: Jivha Madhyam, Jivha Moolam, Jivha Madhyam, Jivha Upagram, and Jivha Gram. And Jivha Gradha is the bottom part. So the bottom part of the tongue is Jivhagra Adha. Adha is below. So these are the 5 karanas, or these are the 5 separate karanas, and then there are 2 more karanas, namely Oshtau and Nasika. So for all practical purposes, you have 7 Uchcharana sthanas and you have 7 karanas. Jivhagram, Jivhagradha, Jivhopagram, Jivhamadhyam, Jivhamoolam, and Oshtau and Nasika. But these are parts of the same organ. So how many organs? Iti trayah avayavaha. Iti tatra uttaram diyate. Now, this is the foundational discussion. So what I have discussed right now is basically the 7 Uchcharana sthanas and the names of the corresponding groups, Kanthyaha and Murdhanyaha and Talavyaha and so on, and then the names of 7 Karanas. Now, starting from the next slide, we are going to look at what letter maps to what Uchcharana sthana and what Karana is used over there. So let's start. I'm going to give the references from the Paniniya Shiksha Vruddha Patha because this is actually written by Panini. So it is the source of truth for us. And then I'll also explain. There are no sutras for this in Ashtadhyayi. So Ashtadhyayi will not tell you which letter is a Kanthya and which letter is Murdhanya and so on. The commentaries of Ashtadhyayi like Kashika or Laghu Siddhanta Kaumudi or Siddhanta Kaumudi, they will have some explanation. So we will see that also towards the end. But for now, let's focus on the original wording from the Paniniya Shiksha Vruddha Patha. So he starts by saying, Akuha Visarjaniyaha Kanthyaha. A. A is all types of akara. We have seen 9 types of akara yesterday. We are going to see 9 more today. So that's 18 akaras. But all these 18 akaras, so sarva prakarakaha akaraha, avarnaha, then ku. That ukara is a special symbol which is used to indicate the row. So ku indicates ka varga. Chu will indicate cha varga. Tu will indicate ta varga. So the horizontal line ka kha ga ghanga. So a varnaha ityukte sarva prakarakaha akaraha ka vargiya varnaha panchavarnaha hakaraha and visargaha. Visarjaniya is a technical name for visarga. In Ashtadhyayi, you will not find the word called visarga. Panini uses the word called visarjaniya in place of visarga. Maybe that was a more popular name at that time. But all these letters are generated from kantha. You can actually feel that. You can put your hand next to the kantha and pronounce ka kha. Don't unmute yourself and pronounce. Do whatever you want by keeping yourself muted. But you can try pronouncing it ka kha ga ga and a distinct vibration will be heard. So none of this is pure theory. Everything is practice and you can actually see it happening in your own mouth. So एतेषां वर्णानाम् उच्चारणसमये वायोः कण्ठप्रदेशे आघातः भवति अस्मात् आघातात् ध्वनिः उत्पद्यते. And what would be the karana of this aghata? Now we have to use some logic. The kantha is all the way over here. This is the kantha. Which is the karana next to the kantha? It is the jivha moolam. So this jivha moolam, so the air is coming from this direction, and this jivha moolam directs the air so that it hits the kantha region, and therefore asya uchcharana sthan asya aghatasya karanam अस्य उच्चारणस्य करणं जिह्वामूलम् इति अस्ति. So for these letters the five k vargiyas, sixth is hakara and seventh is visarjaniya, visarga. For all these seven, the primary uchcharana sthana is kantha and the karana is jivhamulam. Now, as I mentioned, some pratishakyas or some other grammars, some other shikshas do not consider kantha at all. So then there are alternate sutras. Paniniya Shiksha, Vruddha Pathak gives their opinion also. So this is just for your information. Havisarjaniyo urasi ekesham. Some people consider the hakara and the visarjaniya to be generated from the chest. Sarvamukhasthanam avarnam. The pronunciation of a requires not just the kantha but the entire mouth. Sarvamukhasthanam. Jivhamule tu kuf proktaha. The K series, K, Kh, G, Gh, Ng, is in the Jivhamula and not in the Kantha. So as you can see, they are very close to each other, the Kantha and the Jivhamula. So then there is a difference of opinion amongst the Shastras. Some treat chest, uraha, some treat Sarvamukhasthanam, some treat Jivhamulam. Because if Kantha is not to be considered, then you have to redistribute these letters. So if kantha is not to be considered, ha and visarjaniya go to the chest region, the goes to sarvamukhasthanam, and the remaining ka varga goes to jivhamulam. So that is an alternate way of thinking. However, as far as Paniniya Vyakarana is concerned, the kantha is the uchcharana sthana of all these. And the line from Siddhanta Kaumudi, we have to memorize this. I'm going to put it on that brown paper towards the end of the class. Akuha visarjaniyanam kantha. And here is how it appears in the Matruka Patha. So, ku, that's the ka varga. Ha. So, ku ha visarjaniya. So, akuha visarjaniyanam kantha. That is the first uchcharana sthana. Understand the difference between kantha and kanthya. Kantha is the uchcharana sthana. So when you are talking about kantha, you have to use a shashti vibhakti. Akarasya nochet avarnasya kantha uchcharana sthanam. Ka vargasya kantha uchcharana sthanam, and so on. Whereas kanthya is kanthe bhavaha kanthyaha. The one that exists or one that originates from kantha is the kanthya. So it is the Visheshana of the Varna. So when you use the word Kanthya, you have to use everything in Prathama. Varnaha Kanthyaha, Ku Vargiyaha Kanthyaha, Hakaraha Kanthyaha, and so on. So understand this difference. This difference is going to follow for all other slides as well. So Akuha Visarjaniyaha Kanthyaha. The next is, now we are going from that kantha, the immediate next one is jivhamuliyaha jivyaha. So next to that kantha is the location called the jivhamulam. The jivhamulam, remember this particular table. What was jivyaha? Jivyaha is the letter which has the jivhamulam as the uchcharana sthana. So which letter has the jivhamulam as the uchcharana sthana? It is the jivhamuliyaha. We all know what is the jivhamuliyaha. Visargadanantaram kakarha khakaraha va vidyate chet visargasya sthane yasya varnasya uchcharanam bhavati. So Ramah karoti. Try pronouncing this and you will feel a vibration towards the base of your tongue. Ramah khadati. So that is jivhamuliya. Saha jivha pradeshat. इत्युक्ते जिह्वायाः मूलप्रदेशात् उपलभ्यते. अस्य वर्णस्य उच्चारणसमये वायोः जिह्वामूले आघातः भवति, तस्मात् ध्वनिः उत्पद्यते. So it is the jivha muliyah. And remember, jivha itself is our karana. In fact, jivha moolam is a part of our karana. It's shown over here. So jivha moolam is this explicitly written as a karana. So atra jivha moolam eva karanam. So jivha moolam eva uchcharana sthanam, jivha moolam eva karanam. What was earlier? Kantha was the uchcharana sthanam, jivha moolam was the karanam. We have to memorize this. A lot of information is going to come like this in today's class. It has to be memorized if you want to proceed in Paninian grammar. This is one of the fundamentals of all the transformations that happen in the Prakriti Pratyaya combination. So I am spending initial few classes on these topics. So atra jivhamuliyasya uchcharanasthanam api jivhamulam karanam api jivhamulam. And as I mentioned earlier, if the kantha is not in the picture, some of those varnas are transferred to the jivha moolam, and therefore there is an alternative view, whatever. Ka vargaha, a varnaha, anuswaraha, jivha mulya, all these are mapped to the jivya group because the kantha is not being considered. But that's a different stream of opinion. As far as Paniniya Vyakarana is concerned, what does the Siddhanta Kaumudi say? Jivhamuliyasya uchcharana sthanam jivhamulam. So we had akuha visarjaniyanam kantaha, and now we have jivhamuliyasya jivhamulam. So this particular letter over here is jivhamuliya, and asya uchcharana sthanam jivhamulam asti. So let's see this uchcharana sthanani. We are done with this kantha and we are done with this jivhamuliya. Now the next one over here is talu. Talu is the region of your upper jaw a little after it's towards the outside of kantha. So that's the talu. Talu is ukaranta napumsakalinga shabda, like madhu, madhuni, madhuni, talu, taluni, taluni. So it is ukaranta napumsakalinga shabda, and the rule in the Paniniya Shiksha Vruddha Patha says ichu yashaha talavyaha. Kaharthaha I varnaha, all the ikaras, ch vargiyas, ch j jhanya, ch vargiyas, ya yakaraha, and sh. So I, chu, that is the ch series, ya and sh, all talu pradeshat upalabhyante ityukte etesham uchcharana samaye vayoho talu pradeshe aghatah bhavati tasmat dhvanihi jayate. And what is next to that talu? So if you look at this talu over here, the jivha madhya region is next to that talu. So the jivha madhya is going to hit that particular talu region. Hit does not necessarily mean direct contact. Basically, all that it means is that the vayu is being redirected towards the talu region because of the jivha madhya. So asya aghatasya karanam jivha madhyam iti asti. Paniniya shikshayaam uchyate jivha madhyena talavyanam uchcharanam. So who are the talus? And see now in the Matruka Patha also it is arranged in the same sequence. So who are the talavya letters? It is the second row. The first row was kanthya letters. The second row is now talavya letters. So you have ichu yashanam uchcharana sthanam talu iti siddhanta kaumudyam nirdeshaha vidyate. So if you go back to the Matruka Patha, E, that's the 18 E letters. Chu, that's the entire ch series. And ya and sh is this vertical band. So observe, even those two lines are written in such a way that the vertical bands will match to the same uchcharana sthana. So ya and sh are talu. So ichu yashanam talu. The talu is the uchcharana sthana. It is a napumsakalinga shabda. Talu, taluni, taluni. Now, at this stage, I want to take a step back and explain something that if you try to pronounce ch, varga, or e, or y, or sh, for some people, or for many people maybe, the observation is slightly different. Try pronouncing ch, and you will actually see the tip of the tongue, not just the tip, but the upagra part touching somewhere on the upper roof or on the roof of the mouth. So the thing that you feel touches is definitely not jivha madhyam. Jivha madhyam is located in the middle of the tongue. You can't really feel it in the front in your mouth. But when you pronounce ch, j, you feel the initial part of the tongue touching. So what the Shastras write doesn't really resonate with how we pronounce. And the reason for that is twofold. Number one, just because this initial part is touching the roof of the mouth does not mean that the Jivha Madhyam is not involved. As I mentioned, the Karana is an entity that directs the Vayu. We are not saying it immediately touches, it directs the Vayu. Tomorrow we are going to talk about this touching business when we discuss Prayatnas. At that time, I will come to this topic again. But for now, we all that we care is that this Jivma Madhyam is redirecting the Vayu. So whether or not the tip of the tongue touches, that's a completely different discussion. The Jivha Madhyam will still be involved, and Jivha Madhyam will still redirect the Vayu to that particular region which is called Talu in the Shastra, and then something else might be happening which you are experiencing. So that's one way to look at it. Second way to look at it is that due to the regional differences or local ways of pronunciation. So, for example, we all also know that dnya, some people pronounce it as gya, some people pronounce it as ja, whatever. So, because of the regional language effects, the pronunciation sometimes changes. Now, I won't dare to say it becomes incorrect because it is the that community or that group which always pronounces it in that way. So the pronunciation changes because of the region, and that could also be the reason why the ch pronunciation or the pronunciation of the ch vargiya letters might have changed, and now the tongue has started touching the part of the mouth closer to the lips. But one way to see how to correctly pronounce the ch letters, again, don't try it by unmuting yourself. If you're muted, try whatever you want. You can actually hold the tip of the tongue with your hand like this and try to pronounce ch, ch, j, j, nya. You will see that you can still pronounce these letters. Sound will be slightly different, but at that time, the actual jivha madhya will actually touch the talu, and you can feel that sensation of the jivha madhya touching the talu or redirecting the vayu towards the talu. So you can do that later on. I just wanted to explain that the Shastra over here, specifically for Talu, slightly differs from the experience, and there are multiple reasons for that. But you can always pronounce cha cha ja ja nya by specifically ensuring that Jivha Madhya, which is the Karana, touches the Talu Pradesha. So that's the Talavya Varnas, I, Chu, Ya, Shanam, Talu. The next is in the order of Uchcharana Sthanani. So we are done with Jivvamulam, we are done with Kantha, we are done with Talu. Let's move to the next one, Murdha. So Rutu Rashaha Murdhanyaha. This is very simple to understand, extremely easy. So Ru, Sarva Prakarakaha Rikaraha. Ta, Ta, Tha, Da, Dha, Na. So Ta Vargiya. R, Rephaha. And Sh, Shakaraha. For all these, the tongue directs the Vayu towards the Murdha region. Murdha region is the region of your roof of the mouth just before the teeth. So this is the Danta Pradesha, and just before the Danta Pradesha, this is the Murdha. So it's actually very easy to see. Try pronouncing ta, tha, da, dha, na, and you will clearly see the tongue going to that particular location. Same with ru, same with r, and same with sh. So etesham uchcharana samaye vayoho murdha pradeshe aghate jate. So murdhan iti nakaranta shabdaha. When the samasa happens, murdha pradeshe aghate jate tasmat dhvanihi utpadyate. Please understand, we are not saying that the tongue or the karna will touch that particular organ. The touching business, as I mentioned, is different. We are going to talk about it in the next class, after today's class. For now, all that we are saying is that it helps redirect the vayu to that particular location. So, asya aghatasya karanam kim asti? Jivhopagram. So, this is the jivha upagram because that is the one that comes just below the murdha. And more interestingly, jivha gradha, the lower part of the tongue. Try pronouncing t, th, d, dh. Try pronouncing r. You can clearly see the lower part of the tongue, specifically for t, th, d, dh. No? The lower part of the tongue flips and touches the roof of the mouth. So jivha gradha and jivhopagram. Two karnas are used over here. So asya aghatasya karanam kim? Jivhopagram iti karanam. Why? Because Jivhopagram immediately lies below the murdha, and Jivhagradha is also karanam because your tongue flips and reaches the roof of mouth. So Jivhagradha iti karanam. Panini Shiksha Vruddha Patha says this: Jivhopagrena murdhanyanam ucharanam Jivhagradha karanam va. Va doesn't mean option. It means this is also a second possibility or second karana that is involved. So Jivha Upagra region and Jivha other region are the karanas. These are the ones that will direct the Vayu, the air, to the Murdha region for Ruvarna, 18 of them. Tavargiyaha, Tathadadhana, Rephaha, and Shakaraha. And that is the reason why this shakara is called murdhanya. So, in the many times, for example, you have seen that a sa becomes a sh. That transformation is called murdhanya. So, that murdhanya shakara. Or even na becomes na. That na is also murdhanya. Ta, tha, da, da, na. So, that is also murdhanya. So, murdhanya transformations is a very important concept in Paninian grammar. Sa becoming sh. So, you don't say Ramesu, you say Rameshu. And obviously, Natva, Ramanam. You don't say no, you say no. So, that murdhanya transformation is for the murdhanya letters. And then there is an alternate reading, Rephaha Dantamuliyaha Ekesham. So, some people believe that the origin of repha is the mula, the root of the teeth. It doesn't really matter because you can see that the murdha is very close to the root of the teeth. So it's 1 millimeter here and there. So whether it is murdha or whether it is root of the teeth, it's next to each other. So it doesn't really, I mean, changing the rule doesn't really differ the reading. But as far as Paniniya Vyakaranam is concerned, we will stick to what is written in our granthas. So Rutu Rashanam Murdha. Going back to our table, Ru. So this 18 letters, Ru, 2. So this Tathadadhana and Rasha. So the next vertical line. So the first vertical line, Ya and Sha was Talu, and now second Ra and Sha is Murdha. So Rutu Rashanam Murdha. And as I mentioned, Murdhan is a Nakaranta Shabda like Rajan. So Raja Rajano Rajanaha, Murdha Murdhano Murdhanaha. द्वितीया विभक्ति राजानम राजानो राज्ञः मूर्धा मूर्धानम मूर्धानो मूर्ध्नः. So a is removed. So like Rajan, Murdhan is Nakaranta Pullinga Shabda. So that completes the Murdha. Jivha Moolam is done, Kantha is done, Talu is done, Murdha is done. The next is Dantaha. Again, very easy to see. You can see tongue touching the teeth. Lutulasaha Dantyaha. The L letter, all 12 types of L. So yesterday we saw 6 types. Today 6 more will be added. So that's 12. So 12 types of Lu. Ta Vargyaha. Ta, tha, da, dha, na. Clearly the tongue is touching the teeth. Lakaraha, sakaraha. So lu, tu, la, and sa danta pradeshat upalabhyante. एतेषाम् उच्चारण समये वायोः दंत प्रदेशे आघातः भवति तस्मात् ध्वनि उत्पद्यते. And who will be the karana? It is the tip of the tongue. No other part of the tongue can actually go and direct the air to the teeth. So asya aghatasya karanam jivha agram asti. So that's the one that's closest to the teeth. So asya aghatasya karanam jivhagram jivhagrena dantyanam uchcharanam. Which are these dantyas? L, ta varga, l and sa. So lutulasanam dantaha. Understand this. Now for this particular case, it's very easy to see tongue doesn't necessarily touch every time. So if you pronounce, for example, sa, tongue doesn't touch that clearly as it touches for ta, tha, da, dha, na. So we are not talking about the karana touching the organ. We are only saying the karana pushes or redirects the air to that organ. Now there are 5 different ways of redirecting that air. And those are the ones we are going to learn in the next class, Prayatnam Anusrutya Varna Vibhagaha. So the Prayatna, the fourth category, is how that tongue is redirecting that air. But for now, all that we care is that the tongue redirects the air. Therefore, the tongue is Karana. And in this particular case, it is the tip of the tongue, jivhagram, that is redirecting the air. So, lutulasanam, uchcharanasthanam, dantaha, tasya karanam, jivhagram. And we say dantaha, not dantaha, because anike dantaha santi. You don't,
Menos
you don't,
order ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು
you don't use teeth, single teeth, you use multiple teeth. So, anike dantaha. And as I mentioned earlier as well, it is the urdhva danta panktihi that is typically used. So for example, you can see ta, tha, da, dha, na. The lower teeth row is not actually used. It is the urdhva danta pankti that is used. So lutulasanam dantaha. So that's the lu letter, 12 of them. Tu. So that's the ta varga. And lasanam. So lutulasanam dantaha. Now there is an interesting point over here. Teeth is the only organ in the mouth cavity which can fall down. You don't see people with kantha falling down or tongue falling down or talu, murdha or even oshtha falling down. But teeth can disappear. If teeth fall down, still those people can pronounce the vargya letters and la and sa. So then what is the truth in lutulasanam dantaha? That's a valid question. And the answer is Danta iti shabdena danta moola pradeshaha vivakshitaha. So even if the teeth is not there, there is some space, the gums. That is the place where the air is going to hit, the vayu is going to hit, and from that the letters are going to be generated, the sound is going to be generated. So danta shabdena danta moola pradeshaha vivakshitaha. Anyatha, otherwise, if you take dantas as verbatim teeth, bhagna dantasya, one whose teeth are broken or not there, tad uchcharana anupapattehe. If you verbatim take the teeth, then somebody who does not have the teeth, a bhagna danta person, will not be able to pronounce, and that's not what is seen in the loka. So tad uchcharana anupapatti means dosha. So he is not being able to pronounce that, and that's a dosha because that doesn't match what you see in the loka. So technically, danta does not indicate only the teeth. Obviously, it will indicate the teeth because for a person who has the teeth, the tongue is going to touch the teeth. The tongue is not going to touch the gums over there. But for somebody who doesn't have the teeth, the tongue will touch the gums part over there. Therefore, danta shabdena danta moola pradeshaha api vivakshitaha anyatha bhagna dantasya tad uchcharana anupapattehi. So that's the teeth region. So jivhamulam is done, kantha is done, talu, murdha, dantaha, and the last one, or the second last one here is oshtau. Again, that's also very easy to see. Upopadmani aha oshtyaha. U. So that's U varna. Obviously, when you say U, the lips form a certain kind of round. So oo. सर्व प्रकारकः उकारः, so that's ऊ, ह्रस्व, दीर्घ, प्लुत, उदात्त, अनुदात्त, स्वरित, and so on. सर्व प्रकारकः उकारः पवर्गीयः. So this is actually a sandhi that has happened. U plus hrasva pu plus upadhmaniya. A savarna dirgha has been done, so upupadhmaniya is being written over there. But it is hrasva pu which indicates the pa line, pa, pha, ba, bha, ma. And that's why you must pronounce it as ha and not as the Farsi fa. Because when you pronounce fa, the lips don't touch. For all pa, pha, ba, bha, ma, the lips must touch each other. Pa, pha, ba, bha, ma. Therefore, pavargiyaha, uvarnaha, and upadhmaniyaha. We all know what is an upadhmaniya. Visargadanantaram pakaraha, phakaraha va vidyate chet. Visargasya sthane upadhmaniyasya uchcharanam bhavati. So, Ramah pachati, Ramah phanati. So, this is the upadhmaniya. एतेषाम् उच्चारण समये वायोः ओष्ठ प्रदेशे आघाते जाते तस्मात् ध्वनिः उत्पद्यते. And understand that for these letters tongue is not used. Tongue remains in the mouth cavity and the lips close. Pa, pha, ba, bha. Observe yourself by pronouncing that tongue is not being used over here. So, oshtau eva atra karanam. Remember, all the way earlier we discussed that there are 5 karanas on the tongue itself, and the 6th karana is nasika and the 7th karana is oshtau. So here oshtau itself is the karana. So upupadmaniyaha oshtyaha varnaha uchcharanasthanam api oshtau karanam api oshtau. So we say upupadmaniyanam oshtau. And never use it in ekavachana. Don't say oshthaha or ओष्ठम whatever. Say ओष्ठौ पुल्लिंग अस्ति अतः द्विवचने द्वौ ओष्ठौ द्विवचने प्रयोगः करणीयः. So u, so that's the 18 ukaras. Pu, pa, pha, ba, bha, ma, and this last entity on the last row, upadhmaniya. So upupadhmaniyanam oshtau. So that's the oshtha. So this completes 6 of them. Jivhamulam, Kantha, Talu, Murdha, Dantaha, Oshtau. The last is Nasika. So the next one, Anuswara Yamaha Nasikyaha. The Anuswara and Yamas, remember I briefly mentioned these are the letters that are only seen in the Vedas. We don't see them in the Laukika Sanskrita and they are not of any relevance in the Paninian grammar. So just to understand this sutram for Anuswara for now. The sutra says Anuswara and Yama, we will keep Yama aside. So Anuswaraha tatha cha Yamaha ete nasika pradeshadupalabhyante. What this means is that the Vayu does not enter the mouth cavity at all. It directly enters the nose and comes out of the nose. Mouth is not involved. So Anuswaraha tatha Yamaha ete nasika pradeshadupalabhyante. एतेषाम् उच्चारण समये वायोः नासिकायाम् आघातः भवति तथा तस्मात् ध्वनिः उत्पद्यते. And some people say kanthanasikhyam. So some people involve the kantha over there because when the vayu is coming in this direction, I'll show you, when the vayu is coming in this direction, it might hit the kantha temporarily and then go out of the nose. So for some people, some pratishakyas, they will say Kanthanasikhyam Anuswaram. But as far as Panini Vyakaranam is concerned, it's purely Nasika. Mouth is not used and the Karanam will also Nasika. Why? Because Nasika is a valid Karana and if the Vayu is not entering the mouth, the tongue cannot be involved and the Oshtha cannot be involved. So Nasika has to be Karana. Siddhanta Kaumudi says Nasika Anuswarasya. So going back to the Matruka Patha, this is the Anuswara, it has Nasika. So this way we have seen the definitions of all these kanthyaha. So akuha visarjaniyaha kanthyaha, ichuyashaha talavyaha, ruturashaha murdhanyaha, lidalasaha dantyaha, upupadmaniyaha oshtyaha, and anuswaraha Nasikyaha. So individual classes where only one Uchcharana sthana is used, those are now covered. However, if you go to this Matruka Patha, some letters are still pending. A and O are not yet covered. O are not covered. A I are not covered. O are not covered. V is not covered. So we need classes which are overlapping. So ekadhika uchcharana sthana vishishta varnaha. The letters for which more than one uchcharana sthana is required. So Panini Shiksha Vruddha Patha first talks about A and I. A, I, Kanthatalavyau. So go back to the table. This particular first entry on the second table, Kantatalavya, this is A, I. And the immediate next entry is O, Au. So A and I, they require Kantha as well as Talu. What does it mean? एतयोः उच्चारणस्थाने वायोः आदौ कण्ठप्रदेशे आघातः भवति. It gets reflected from there and then hits the talu. So ततः तालुनि अपि आघातः भवति. And the karana for the kantha region will be jivha moolam. Karana for the talu region will be jivha madhyam. Probably too much information is being given today, but revise the class, listen to the recording later on again, and then you will understand this mapping. So therefore, the karana is jivha moolam and jivha madhyam. You can see this in the diagram. For the kantha region, it is jivha moolam, and for the talu region, it is jivha madhyam. So jivha moolam and jivha madhyam is karana. Siddhanta Kaumudi says, edaitoho kanthatalu. This is shashti dvivachan. Edait is the pratipadik over there. So eighth and eighth, the takara is used for ease of pronunciation. You can combine, if you combine A and I, some random swara sandhi will happen and it will be very unclear. So ta is introduced just for mukha sukharthaha, uchcharana saulabhyarthaha. So et plus aita becomes edaitau, and the shashti dvivachan is edaitoho kanthascha taluscha anayoho samaharaha. This is samahara dvandva samasa. So see this wording, edaitoho kanthatalu, edaitoho kanthatalu, edaitoho is itaretara dvandva, kanthatalu is samahara dvandva. Samahara dvandva like panipadam, ahinakulam, it's always in the ekvachanam. So kanthatalu. So going to the matruka patha, A and I require kantha and talu. And in the same way, the O and Au are going to require kantha and oshtha. So oshtau. So O, Au, kanthoshthyau. Okaraha tatha aukaraha, or O varnaha, Au varnaha, all of them. So etayoho uchcharana sthanam kanthaha tatha oshtau iti ubhayatha vayoho adau kantha pradeshe aghatah bhavati, and then the reflected vayu directly goes to the oshtha. So this is the kantha region. The vayu comes over here, gets reflected all the way to the lips. So oshtau. And the karana for the kantha region, the karana will be jivha moolam, and for oshtha region, the karana will be oshtha themselves. So atra jivha moolam oshtau cha karanani. Odautoho kanthostham iti siddhanta kaumudi. Just like the way edaitoho kanthatalu, we have odautoho kanthostham. So that's O and Au. The uchcharana sthana is kantha and the two lips, oshtau. Again, same copy paste on that from the previous slide. Oth cha out cha iti odautau. This is itaretara dvandva. Ta is for uchcharana saulabhya, and kantha and oshtau anayoho samaharah kanthostham samahara dvandva samasa asti. So that completes this kantatalavya and kanthosthya. The only thing that is remaining is dantosthya, and specifically for the mukha I'm saying, because the next one will involve nasika. So dantosthya, and the only letter that is remaining is this vakara. So no surprises, vakara is dantosthya, dantaha plus oshtau, and that's our next slide. Vakaraha dantosthyaha. वकारस्य उच्चारणस्थानं दन्ताः इत्युक्ते दन्तमूलप्रदेशः and oshtau. So the vayu comes, hits the teeth, gets reflected and hits the lips. For the teeth, it is the Jivhagra Karna. For the Oshtau, it is the Oshtau themselves as the Karna. So Jivhagram Oshtau cha Karanani. The Vakara requires Danta and the Oshtau. The Karna is the Jivhagra and the Oshtau. Some places, Apishali Shiksha, for example, says Vakarasya Srukva Sthanam. Srukva, typing mistake on the slide, it is Srukva. Srukva Sthanam is the corner of the lips. So when you say Va, the corner of the lips are actually put in action, is what Apishali Shiksha says. But as far as Paniniya Vyakarana is concerned, Vakarasya Dantoshtham iti Uchcharana Sthanam. That's what we have seen over here. Vakarasya Dantoshtham. We have covered around 70% of the slide deck. As I mentioned, I am going to continue. 1 hour is already over. People are recommended to stay with me. But if you have some other work, you can disconnect and watch the recording later on. Let's move ahead. So that's the Dantoshtham. The final category is Anunasika. If you go to this table, Anunasika. Again, two Uchcharana sthanas are combined. One is Mukhasthitam Uchcharana sthanam and other is Nasika. So see, for the previous ones, two sthanas inside the mouth were combined. For the Anunasika, what is happening is one of these sthanas, Kantha, Talu, Murdha, Dantaha and Oshtau, one of these is combined with Nasika. And most of you probably know this represents the last line of the Vargiya Vyanjanas. So basically, ng, y, n, and ma, when you pronounce them, you also require Nasika and you require the corresponding organ in the mouth. So for Ngakara, it will be Kantha plus Nasika. For Yakara, it will be Talu plus Nasika, Nakara Murdha plus Nasika, Nakara Dantaha plus Nasika, and Makara Oshtau plus Nasika. So that's the Ekadhika Uchcharana Sthana, the Varga Panchamas. But that's actually not the complete story. There are some other letters which are also possibly pronounced using the nose. So let's understand what is the real story over here. So the Ashtadhyayi Sutram in this particular context is very generic. It says Mukhanasika Vachanaha Anunasikaha. So Anunasika is any letter, not just those 5 ng, y, and so on. Anunasika is any letter which can be pronounced using Mukha and Nasika together. So till now, we were seeing only the combinations of parts of the mouth. Now we are seeing Mukhasthitam Ekam Sthanam and Nasika. So, Yasya Varnasya Ekam Uchcharana Sthanam Mukhasthitam Asti, Aparnam Uchcharana Sthanam Nasika iti Asti, Saha Anunasika Varnaha iti Namna Jnayate. Let's go back to this table and understand subtle terminologies. Nasikya versus Anunasika. Nasikya is only Nasika and the only example is the Anuswara and the Yamas. And we are keeping the Yama outside, so only Nasika. So Nasikya letter, Nasikya group contains only Nasika. Anunasika, that particular group of letters will contain all the letters which can be pronounced using something from the Mukha and Nasika. So, the difference between Nasikya versus Anunasika. Nasikya kevalam Nasika iti Uchcharana Sthanam. Anunasika Mukhasthitena Uchcharana Sthana Sahitena Nasika iti Uchcharana Sthanam. Now, I mentioned that this is not just the 5 ending letters like ng, y, and all that. And that's because there is a little bit of complexity over here. Anunasika letters are of 2 types. Anunasika varnaha dvidha santi. First category is nityam anunasikaha. So that's where those varga panchamaka ng, y, n, ma, they are always anunasika. which means that whenever you pronounce any of these letters, you don't have a choice. You will use the corresponding region of mouth, kantha, talu, and so on. Plus, you will use the nasika. So, nityam anunasikaha, and these are actually very popular. That's why I quoted them earlier. But then there is a second category, bhedena anunasikaha. So when you pronounce that letter, you have a choice of either using the nasika or not using the nasika. And which letters belong to this category? All ach letters, all swaras. So when you pronounce a, e, and so on, you can pronounce them without needing the nose, or you can pronounce them with help of the nose. So you can say or a or a, and so on. So sarve achvarnaha अनुनासिक निरनुनासिक भेदेन द्विधा santi. Similarly, three special vyanjanas, yakara, vakara, and lakara. These are also anunasika niranunasikena dvidha. So, ya or ya, va or va. You can actually see this in words like sanyama. You can say sanyama with the anuswara or sanyama with the anunasika yakara followed by a normal yakara. Similarly, samvada. You can pronounce this word with an anuswara and va, or samvada with an anunasika va followed by the normal va. And similarly, salapa. You can pronounce it with an anuswara followed by a la, or salapa. You can have an anunasika la followed by another normal la. So ya, va, and la can also be pronounced either with the nose or without the nose. So these are bhedena anunasikaha, and that is the reason on this slide I have shown two number next to ya, la, and va. Ya, both, one with nasika and one without nasika, will need talu. La, with and without nasika, will need the teeth, and va, with or without nasika, will need the dantoshtham. But the Bhedas, one of them will need Nasika, the other will not need Nasika. So let's quickly look at these Nityam Anunasikaha and Bhedena Anunasikaha. The Nityam Anunasikaha are simply the Varga Panchamaha. We have seen this. Ya, nga, ya, na, na, maha, swasthana nasika sthanaha. So their own region of pronunciation plus the nasika. So ngakara is kanthya plus nasikya, nyakara is talavya plus nasikya, and so on. वर्ग पंचम वर्णानाम उच्चारण समये तत्तद वर्ग विशिष्टस्य उच्चारण स्थानस्य प्रयोगः तु अवश्यमेव भवति, तेन सह नासिकायाः प्रयोगः अपि भवति. सो यमगणनानां नासिका च. Shakara is important because it brings the other ucharana sthana from mouth. So that's this vertical region. Yamaganananam nasika cha. So this is the first category where it is the compulsory anunasika. And coming to the optional anunasika, saha ityukte saha ach. Now we are first talking about the swaras. So saha ach pratyekam. So we have seen it was 9 types earlier. Which 9 types? Udatta anudatta swarita multiplied by rasva dirgha pluta. So those 9 types. Saha navavidhaha ach pratyekam anunasika ananunasikatwabhyam dvidha. So rasva dirgha pluta multiplied by udatta anudatta swarita iti navaprakarakaha ach pratyekam anunasika ananunasika bhedena vibhajyate. अनुनासिका इत्युक्ते पूर्वोक्तेन उच्चारणस्थानेन सह नासिकायाः प्रयोगः. So anunasika a varna will be kanthya plus nasikya, anunasika e varna will be talavya plus nasikya, and so on. You can go through this listing, doesn't require any explanation. And then ananunasika, similarly also called as niranunasika, normal ach, which does not require the nasika. So this way you have now 18 types of akara or avarna, 18 types of avarna. The 9 we had seen yesterday, which were without anunasika, which were without the use of nasika. So they were niranunasika. and now you replicate them but pronounce them with nasika, so they are anunasika. So 18 akaras, 18 ikaras, 18 ukaras. Repeat, avarna, it's all fit badly in the brain. So 18 avarnas, 18 e varnas, 18 u varnas, 18 r varnas, and then 12 of the remaining, because there were only 6. 6 when replicated will become 12. So 12 lu varnas, a varnas, I varnas, o varnas, and au varnas. So that's the swaraha. I have a chart. I'll show you in a moment. But the next category is Yavalaha Anunasika Ananunasika Bhedena Yavala. It's not a word, like it doesn't mean anything particular. Yavala, the letters are being combined. So Ya means Ya Varna, Va Varna, and La Varna. So Yavalaha Anunasika Ananunasika Bhedena Yavalaha Dvidha. So Yavala Ete Varnaha Nasikaya Sah Uchcharayitum Shakyaha नासिकां विना अपि उच्चारयितुं शक्याः नासिकया सह उच्चार्यमाणाः अनुनासिकाः नासिकां विना उच्चार्यमाणाः अननुनासिकाः. So if you take a yakara, it will definitely require a talu, ichu yashanam talu, but anunasika yakara will require nasika as well. So talavyaha plus nasikyaha, and the normal yakara is just talavyaha. Similarly for vakara and lakara. So the anunasika letters are classified into nityam anunasikaha, which are the varga panchama, and optional anunasikaha or bhedena anunasikaha, which are the swaras, all of them ach letters and the ya vowels. Now I know we are running out of time, but still I want to tell you something very interesting. The question is, and you all should think in this way. The question is, why only ya, va, la are anunasika, ananunasike bhedena dvidha? Why not ka, kha, ga, gha, nga? What they have done so that they are not included over here. More interestingly, just like the way I can pronounce nya, wa, and la with the nose, I can actually pronounce ka, kha, ga, gha with the nose. Ka, kha, ga, like that. It's looking comedy, but these letters can be pronounced. So all Vyanjanas technically can be pronounced with nose if you try it out. So why only ya, va, and la are being categorized as anunasika versus ananunasika? So very interesting, very important question, and the answer is even more interesting. And I have hinted at this answer earlier. I'm just going to build up on that. Understand that these Vyanjanas are classified into 3 groups. We have the Vargiya Vyanjanas, we have the Antasthas, and we have the Ushmanas. Let us keep Antasthas aside for now. When you are actually pronouncing a Vargiya Vyanjana with a nasal sound, because I just said that I can technically pronounce ka, kha, ga with a nasal sound. So when you are actually pronouncing those Vargiya Vyanjanas with a nasal sound, observe that you are actually pronouncing an akara along with it with a nasal sound. I have mentioned this earlier that you cannot speak Vargiya Vyanjanas for an extended period of time. You need an akara at the end. So k cannot be pronounced for an extended period of time without adding an a. And simply k cannot be pronounced with the nose. Try it out. As soon as you try pronouncing that k with a nose, an implicit a is getting added at the end. So whatever you think ka, kha is anunasika, the anunasika component is the anunasika akara over there. So it is ka plus anunasika ach letter, anunasika version of akara, that is giving you ka, kha, and so on. And therefore, for Vargiya Vyanjanas, you cannot use the nose. Same for sh. Sh you can actually pronounce in an extended manner. Sh. And you cannot use a nose. Try it out. You, as soon as you start using a nose, you will be forced to put an a over there with an anunasika. Sh. You cannot pronounce just sh with a nose. So same thing for sh, s, and h. So ushmanas cannot be pronounced with a nose. That leaves us only with the ya, ra, la, va, the antasthas, and the name itself tells that they are antasthas, Why? Because they share the properties of swaras and vyanjanas. They are sitting in between. And the property of the swara that they share is being anunasika or ananunasika. And while pronouncing a yakara, for example, I mentioned that initial part of that yakara sounds like a swara. Try pronouncing yakara half, and you will inherently hear a e. E. The half yakara is e, that e can be anunasika. So if that e turns out to be anunasika, the entire yakara turns out to be anunasika. So these antasthas, ya, la, and va, they share the property of e, l, and u, which can be anunasika. Therefore, yavalas are anunasika. So see how beautifully our shastras have designed everything. And I have made a little circus over here because there are four antasthas: ya, ra, la, and va. But anunasika property is only carried to three of them: the ya, la, and va. Why not ra? It is also an antastha. It is also sitting in the same row. It also has a component of rukara, which is a swara and which can be anunasika. So why is ra not considered anunasika in that list? The reason is fascinating. When you speak r, and this is there in the shastra, when you speak r, your tongue vibrates. For other letters it doesn't vibrate. For r, the tongue vibrates with a very high speed, and that vibration blocks the air to enter from entering the nose. So air does not enter the nose because of this vibration. The air is pulled in the mouth cavity, and therefore the pronunciation of r, try pronouncing r without an ending a with an anunasika or with a nasal sound, you cannot do it. That's because there is no way air can pass through the nose. Therefore, ya, va, las are the only letters which are anunasika and anunasika dvidha. And now there is one icing on the top of this, that somebody might just question back saying that if this r cannot be anunasika because the tongue vibrates, then in ru also tongue vibrates because rutu rashanam murdha. So in ru also tongue vibrates. But then why ru can be anunasika whereas r cannot be anunasika? So somebody might always question that. And the answer, I have already told it in one of the previous classes, that remember the energy packet of ru contains an energy packet of r inside. So that r component inside the ru is the one that is causing the tongue to vibrate, and that cannot be anunasika. But the outside energy or the outside portion, it is not a distinct varna by itself, but it is some mechanism that will allow the air to pass through the nose. So the r component sitting inside the ru is not going to allow the air to pass through the nose, but the remaining part, because the packet of ru is different than the packet of r, so that remaining part is going to allow the air to pass through the nose, and therefore ru, even though the tongue vibrates, that's not sufficient. And we are going to talk about this in more details. The prayatna, the way the tongue vibrates is different for r and ru. That also plays a significant role in directing the air through the nose for the ru, but not for the r. So see, nobody will teach you this when you talk about the Anunasika, Niranunasika parts of Yavala, but this is how our Shastras, it's not random. No, Panini doesn't wake up from the sleep one day and say, let me make Yavala as Anunasika versus Niranunasika. So much of Shastra is involved over there. So Yavala ete Anunasika Ananunasikena Dvidha. And that completes all the discussion of all the letters. Only a few more slides. How do you write these letters? The Anunasika Varna is to be written using a Chandra Bindu on the top. Not to be confused with a dot, which is Anuswara. Chandra Bindu is a small U followed by a dot in it. So Yaha Varnaha Anunasika Niranunasika Bhedena Dvidha Vibhajyate. Tasya अनुनासिक भेदस्य निर्देशार्थम उपरि चंद्र बिंदु प्रयुज्यते. So then a with a chandra bindu, e with a chandra bindu, and so on. Similarly, ya, va, las are with the chandra bindus, and this chandra bindu is only when there is a bheda. So anunasika niranunasika bhedena vibhajyate, because you want to distinguish the anunasika part from the non-anunasika part. For Varga Panchamas, the y, and so on, it is always Anunasika, so Chandrabindu is not required. Anytime you write a or na, it is always Anunasika. So there is no question of Chandrabindu. So Varga Panchamaha Nityam Anunasikaha Santi, Ataha Tesham Anunasikattvasya Nirdeshartam Chinnam Navashakam. But for the letters which come in two varieties, you need this particular Chandrabindu. And so now specifically for Swaras, how are we going to write them? We have Akara as Udatta Anudatta Swarita, Avarna. We have Avarna as Udatta Anudatta Swarita multiplied by Rasva Dirgha Pluta multiplied by Anunasika Niranunasika. So 3 times 3 times 2 is 18. The letter E Varna, U Varna, Ru Varna are all 18. For Lu Varna, tasya Dirgha Bhedaha Nasti. So 3 times 2 times 3. And for A, I, O, O, Rasva Bhedaha Nasti. So 3 times 2 times 3, that becomes 12. Add up everything, that's 132. These are the 132 swaras, distinct swaras in Laukika Sanskritam. And how do you write this? Take a printout of this and put on the wall. Lots of effort has been put in creating this slide. So Udatta Anudatta Swarita Rasva Dirgha Pluta Niranunasika Anunasika. So let's take a sample example. This particular letter, use this. So for example, this particular letter, it is Rasva Uvarna. So Rasva Ukaraha Tatra Anudattaha Asti. So an underline is added and Anunasika Asti. So the Chandra Bindu is added. Similarly, let's take this letter. It is Swarita. So a vertical line is added. Ekaraha iti Plutaha asti. So 3 is added. And Niranunasika. So the Chandra Bindu is not added. So play around with this particular chart. Try writing these letters in different ways. I mean, just pick up a random letter, think to yourself, how will I write it? And try writing it. That will help you clarify all these concepts. 90% of the class is over. One last very interesting point is remaining. Those of you are staying over here, thank you very much. So there is actually a kind of trouble that comes up when you write Chandra Bindu. I'm not talking about script trouble. Some overloading is happening. Look at this particular letter. There is a ya with a Chandra Bindu. Now, what does it exactly mean? Specifically for ya, I'm talking. Does it mean an Anunasika yakara followed by a normal akara? So, ya plus a. Or does it mean a Niranunasika yakara followed by Anunasika akara? So, ya plus a. That will also give you same letter. Or does it mean both are Anunasika? And this problem comes only for ya, va and la, because in ya, va and la, the Vyanjana component also can be Anunasika and the Swara component can be Anunasika. So that Chandra Bindu, if you put a Chandra Bindu over there, which of those two the Chandra Bindu is associated with? That's the question. And etadrishasya samshayasya nivaranam gurumukhat eva bhavati vyakhyanat eva bhavati. So these situations are very common in Paniniya Vyakarana. And every time you look at the commentary, you have to ask your teacher whether ya is Anunasika over there or a is Anunasika over there. So actually very well known pratyaya called Lyut pratyaya, Pathanam, Lekhanam, Hasanam, that's the Lyut pratyaya. As we will study Paniniya Vyakaranam in details, we will see that it is actually written as Lyut with an Anunasika chinha on the top. So it is you. And the question is now same, is it Anunasika Yakara plus normal Ukara or is it normal Yakara plus Anunasika Ukara? And the answer is there is an Anunasika Yakara over there. The Ukara is not Anunasika. Who tells you that? The Vyakhyanas will tell you that. Similarly, there is a dhatu in the dhatu patha called Kshmayi, and there is this Anunasika chinha. For this dhatu, it is the normal ya followed by an Anunasika e. So again, it is ya plus e. The Vyakhyanas will tell you that. And these are the only two cases. You don't see cases in Paninian grammar where you have both Anunasikas combined together. So this is the specific issue that might come up for only ya, va, la, because the Anunasika, Niranunasika property of the Vyanjana as well as the Swara. And just the last slide, a lot of times people get confused on this. So I have specifically put a slide. Anuswara and Anunasika etayoho madhye bhedaha. Anuswara is a dot, Anunasika is that Chandra Bindu, that's the writing difference. But more important difference is Anunasika is a distinct letter. It is Ayogavaha, it has its own place in the Varnamala. Whereas Anunasika is not a letter, it is a bheda of an existing letter. So Ma will be Anunasika Makara or A will be Anunasika Akara. So an existing letter is taken and it is pronounced through the nose. So that is Anunasika. Remember Panini Sutram, Mukhanasika Vachanonunasikaha. If you only pronounce it through the nose, it will not be called Anunasika. This Anu word is your cue over here. Anu means followed. Something must be followed by the nose, or some nose must follow something. If it's just the nose, it's Nasikya. And the example is Anuswara. Anuswara is Nasikya. But Anunasika, something and Nasika. So Swatantraha Varnaha Nasti, Anya Varnasya Ucharanam Nasikaya Saha Kriyate Chet Anunasika Varnaha. So Anuswarasya Ucharana Sthanam Nasika, Anunasikasya Ucharana Sthanam Nasikaya Saha Mukhastitaha Avayavaha, Anuswaraha Ayogavaha Asti, the last row, Anunasika Varnaha Ayogavaha Nasti, and Anuswara can be treated as a Vyanjana as well as a Swara. I've explained this earlier in one of the classes. We are going to talk about this in details much later in the course. But Vyanjaneshu Swareshu cha Grahanam Bhavati. Anunasika, if the original letter is Swara, Anunasika version will be Swara. If the original letter is Yavala, Vyanjana, the Anunasika version will also be Vyanjana. So this is the difference between Anunasika and Anuswara. So that completes the presentation. This is for the memorization. Let me quickly read. 2 slides are there. Everything is copied from the slides themselves. Nothing is new, but let me read it. And this has to be memorized if you are the serious student of Panini and Vyakarana. So, Akuha Visarjaniyanam Kantaha, Ichuyashanam Talu, Ruturashanam Murdha, Lutulasanam Dantaha, उपूपध्मान्यानामोष्ठौ यमगणनानां नासिकाच्च एदैतोः कण्ठतालु ओदौतोः कण्ठोष्ठं वकारस्य दन्तोष्ठं जिह्वामूलीयस्य जिह्वामूलं नासिका अनुस्वारस्य. So this tells about all the ucharana sthanas. And the next one is about the anunasika part. मुख सहित नासिकया उच्चार्यमाणः वर्णः अनुनासिक संज्ञः स्यात् तदित्थम् अ इ उ ऋ एषां वर्णानां प्रत्येकम् 18 भेदाः लु वर्णस्य 12 तस्य दीर्घाभावात् एषाम् अपि 12 तेषां ह्रस्वाभावात् अनुनासिक अननुनासिक भेदेन यवला अपि द्विधा तेन अननुनासिकाः ते द्वयोः संज्ञा. This last line I have not explained it in details. There is a little more to it, but all that it says is that if you take ya, it means 2 versions. So ananunasikaha te, if you just take a ya, it's 2 versions, anunasika and ananunasika. Ya varna means 2, va varna means 2, and la varna means 2 is what it is saying. Ananunasikaha te dvayoho samnya. And that completes the big session for today. Here is the homework. Bhedan spashti kuruta. So give the differences. And the second question is very interesting. It is all practical applications. So it gives you chance to think about what letters are required for pronunciation or create sentences that involve certain organs of pronunciation. So अस्ति कश्चित् वाग्विशेषः अस्य वाक्यस्य उच्चारणे कस्य कस्य उच्चारणस्थानस्य उपयोगः भवति. और इंटरेस्टिंग, माला इति प्रातिपदिकस्य सर्वेषां सुबन्तरूपाणाम् उच्चारणं क्रियते. इफ यू रिसाइट द एंटायर टेबल ऑफ माला, तर्हि अपि केषाम् उच्चारणस्थानानाम् एकवारमपि प्रयोगः न भवति. So you don't use that particular organ even once when you recite the entire table. Or there are some challenging questions towards the end. एकं वाक्यं रचयत यस्य उच्चारणे एकवारमपि कंठस्य प्रयोगः न भवति. So I have specifically given practical applications which will make you think of what organ is used for what letters. So try out this homework and I'll mention the deadline and so on the WhatsApp group. So that's all for today. Samapayamaha. I am happy to take questions at the moment, but we are already running out of time. And we covered so much material today that I think you all should go back and revise this and then come up with the questions. So I don't want to spend time in any questions at the moment. We will have the discussion on the WhatsApp group, or if there are too many questions in the next class, I can spend some time. But it is important that a lot of material was discussed, so go over it, listen to the recording so that things will fit in the brain, because sometimes the questions that come up right now might automatically get answered later on. So today, let's not take any questions. We are already running so much out of time. Let's respect the time of everyone and we will meet next week. So we have finished the 3 of the 5 Bhedas. So Kala Manusrutya, Swara Manusrutya and Sthana Manusrutya. And we now have only the Prayatna Manusrutya and Anupradana Manusrutya. In the next week, 2 classes, we will take one and finish this particular discussion. So there is only one hand raised at the moment, so I can let the person talk. So Rani Bhagini, if you have a
Mahoday, Namaste, Mahodaya. My name, Aham Rani Asmi. Actually, I joined late to Mahodaya, so that's why I'm unable to upload my homework. So
yeah, we
I
can talk
have a
about that
doubt.
separately.
Yeah, I
Mahoday,
will. I'm preparing for that, but the deadline is homework 1 and 2. Or that I want to know, Mahoday.
the homework
10th
1 and
is
2
deadline.
deadline is the 10th of
Uh,
February, and for the
uh,
next 2 homeworks, it is 18th of February. Okay?
okay, धन्यवादः.
Hopefully, there are no hand raises. Arun Mahoday, you can ask. If there is a question, you can ask only questions related to the topic today, nothing related to homework and so on, because we are running short of time.
Matruka Patak, can you open the slide, Mahoday? So here, the Panchama Varnas, you have said Nasika. Is it not Anunasika?
Anunasika is the category. I am just representing organs. You can see Kantha, Talu, Oshtha are the organs of pronunciation. So I am saying Nasika. Everywhere on that slide, it's only the organs of pronunciation. Okay?
Okay.
अस्तु समापयामः. अग्रिमसप्ताहे नियमितरूपेण कक्षाद्वयं भविष्यति. अष्टाध्यायी जगन्माता यस्य चित्तात् समुत्थिता वेदानाम् उपकाराय तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. शब्दब्रह्म समाराध्य कृतवान्यो विलक्षणं सर्वाश्चर्यमिदं शास्त्रं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. येन धौता गिरः पुंसां विमलैः शब्दवारिभिः तमश्चाज्ञानचं भिन्नं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. धन्यवादः.